The bridge of the human starship Terra's Wrath was quiet, except for the soft hum of engines. Captain Minho Park sat in his command chair, watching the stars drift past the main screen. His crew was doing routine scans of an empty sector of space, looking for new worlds to explore. "Captain," called out Communications Officer Ji-won Kim, "I'm picking up something strange on the emergency frequencies." Minho turned toward her station. "What kind of strange?" Ji-won pressed buttons on her console, and a crackling sound filled the bridge. Through the static came a voice unlike anything they had ever heard before. It was soft and musical but filled with terror. "To any who receive this message," the voice said in broken but understandable universal standard, "we are a peaceful people. We have never known war. We do not understand weapons or fighting. The devourers come for our children. Our cities burn. Our people die. If there are gods among the stars who might show mercy to the innocent, please, please help us." The message repeated over and over. The bridge crew listened in shocked silence. "Sir," whispered Navigation Officer Taehyung Lee, "that signal is coming from the Thesia system. It's about 12 light years from here." Minho stood up slowly. "Ji-won, can you clean up that signal? I want to know exactly what we're dealing with." Ji-won worked at her console for several minutes. Soon the crackling faded and the alien voice became clearer. But it was what came with the voice that made everyone's blood run cold. The view screen lit up with images from the alien world. The crew saw beautiful cities with tall, graceful buildings that looked like they were grown rather than built. But those cities were burning now. Dark ships filled the sky, raining down fire and death. The aliens sending the message looked like tall, graceful deer that walked on two legs. They had large, gentle eyes and moved with quiet dignity. But now they ran in terror through their burning streets. The crew watched in horror as other aliens, massive reptilian creatures with sharp teeth and claws, herded groups of the deer-like beings into metal cages. "My God," breathed Chief Medical Officer Sun-hee Park, "they're rounding them up like animals." The transmission showed more terrible scenes. The reptilian aliens, who the deer people called Krulon, were not just conquering, they were hunting. They grabbed the smallest and weakest of the deer people and dragged them away. The screams that came through the speakers made several crew members turn away. "Captain," said Ji-won, her voice shaking, "I've been analyzing their language. These people, they call themselves Villani. They don't even have words for war or weapon in their language. They're completely peaceful. They've never fought anyone in their entire history." Minho clenched his fists. The Villani were being slaughtered by creatures that saw them as nothing more than food, and they had no way to fight back. "Sir," said Taehyung, "we need to contact Earth Command. This is beyond our authority." But before Minho could respond, the transmission changed. A new voice came through, rough, growling, and full of cruel amusement. It was speaking in the Krulon language, but the ship's computer translated it. "Attention, prey animals," the Krulon voice snarled. "Your pathetic calls for help have been heard across this sector. Know that no one will come for you. You are livestock now. Your young will feed our children. Your adults will work until they die. This is the natural order. The strong consume the weak." The transmission cut to show Krulon soldiers forcing Villani children into transport ships. The gentle aliens could only cry and hold each other as their families were torn apart. Minho had seen enough. "All stop," he ordered. "Set course for Thesia Prime, maximum speed." "Sir?" Taehyung looked confused. "We're just one ship. What can we do against an entire invasion force?" Minho turned to face his crew. His eyes were hard as steel. "We're going to send a message to Earth Command. Then we're going to send a message to these Krulon bastards." He walked to Ji-won's station. "Send this message on all frequencies. Emergency priority to Earth Command. Peaceful alien species under attack by hostile force. Genocide in progress. Request immediate military support." Then add this: "The Krulon want to know what the strong do to the weak. They're about to find out." The crew stared at their captain. They had served with Minho for 3 years and had never seen him this angry. "Sir," said Weapons Officer Hyunwoo Nam carefully, Earth Command will want to study the situation first. They'll want to send diplomats, maybe try to negotiate. While those people die, Minho pointed at the screen, which still showed burning Villani cities. While children are being dragged away to be eaten? No. We're humans from Earth, a Class 12 death world. We didn't climb to the top of our food chain by being polite. He turned to address the entire crew. I know what you're all thinking. We're explorers, not soldiers. We're supposed to make contact with new species peacefully. But look at those images. Look at what's happening to innocent people who never hurt anyone. The bridge was silent except for the ongoing Villani distress calls. I'm not ordering anyone to fight, Minho continued, but I'm going to Thessia Prime. Anyone who wants to transfer to another ship when we get there can do so, but those creatures made one big mistake. They sent their threat on frequencies that reached a human ship. Jiwan looked up from her console. Message sent to Earth Command, sir. But Captain, it will take them weeks to get ships here. Then, we better make sure there are still Villani alive when they arrive, Minho said grimly. All stations battle ready. We're about to show the galaxy why Earth is called a death world. As the Terra's Wrath changed course toward the Thessia system, the crew prepared for something none of them had ever expected. War. But the Villani's desperate cries for help had awakened something deep in human nature, something that had kept humanity alive on a dangerous world for millions of years. The hunters of Earth were coming. Admiral Soyoung Choi stood before the largest gathering of human military leaders in history. The emergency meeting was held on Luna Base, and officers from every branch of Earth's defense forces filled the massive conference room. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Choi began. 3 days ago, Captain Park's ship intercepted a distress call from an alien species called the Villani. What you're about to see will make you understand why I've called for a full military response. The lights dimmed and the main screen showed the recordings from Thessia Prime. The room fell deadly silent as Earth's finest military minds watched the peaceful Villani being hunted and slaughtered by the Krulon. When the recording ended, General Youngji Bei was the first to speak. How many ships do we have available for immediate deployment? 200 of our best warships, replied Admiral Choi, plus support vessels and troop transports. 50,000 Marines and soldiers, all volunteers. Colonel Yoongi Park raised his hand. Admiral, what do we know about these Krulon, their military capabilities? Intelligence suggests they're typical alpha predators, answered Commander Seokjin, Moon from the Tactical Department. They rely on fear and overwhelming force against weak opponents, but they've never faced anything like us. Sergeant Major Hyunwoo Nam, who had transferred from the Terra's Wrath to brief the command staff, stood up. With respect, sir, I think you're all missing the point. This isn't just about military tactics. The Krulon think they're the ultimate predators. They need to learn they're not. Admiral Choi nodded. Exactly. We're not just going to rescue the Villani. We're going to send a message to every species in this galaxy about what happens when you commit genocide. Meanwhile, far across space, the Krulon High Command was receiving their own intelligence reports about the approaching human fleet. General Vorthak, the Krulon's supreme military leader, laughed as he read the data. Mammals from a water world? These humans think they can challenge us? Sir, said his aide nervously, they're bringing 200 warships. Numbers mean nothing, Vorthak snarled, showing his razor-sharp teeth. We are Krulon. We have conquered 47 species. These soft creatures from their gentle world will break at first sight of real predators. But General Vorthak was wrong about Earth being gentle. Back on Luna Base, the human fleet was preparing for war in ways the Krulon could never imagine. Lieutenant Colonel Min Ji-yoon was briefing her psychological warfare unit. Our job is simple, she explained to her team. We make them afraid before we even arrive. The Krulon think fear is their weapon. Time to show them what real terror looks like. Her unit began broadcasting on Krulon military frequencies. The transmission showed Earth's deadliest creatures in action. Great white sharks tearing through seals, tigers stalking prey through dark jungles, and most terrifying of all, humans hunting. The Krulon had never seen anything like it. The humans. From their water world, didn't just hunt for food like civilized predators. They hunted for sport. They hunted in groups with tools. They hunted creatures far larger and stronger than themselves and won. Captain Donghyun Cho was piloting the first human scout ship to reach Krulon space. His mission was simple. Let them know the humans had arrived. Retribution. This is Scout 1, he reported back to the flagship. I have visual on 3 Krulon patrol ships. They're moving to intercept. Copy Scout 1, replied Admiral Choi. Execute Plan Alpha. What happened next would be talked about in military academies for centuries, instead of running or fighting. Normally, Captain Cho did something no sane pilot would attempt. He accelerated directly toward the 3 Krulon ships at full speed. The Krulon expected him to veer off at the last second. Instead, using reflexes honed on a death world where a moment's hesitation meant death, Cho threaded his ship through the gap between 2 Krulon vessels, spinning and diving with impossible precision. The Krulon ships, trying to avoid collision, crashed into each other. Cho's ship emerged from the explosion completely unharmed. Retribution, this is Scout 1, Cho reported calmly. 3 Krulon ships destroyed. No damage to us. These guys are slower than I thought. Across the Krulon fleet, word of the impossible. Maneuver spread like wildfire. How could any pilot have reflexes fast enough to navigate between 3 ships at combat speed? The answer was simple. They couldn't unless they came from a world where everything was trying to kill them every second of every day. General Vorthak was beginning to understand he had made a terrible mistake. What kind of world produces creatures with reflexes like that? His intelligence officer, sweating despite the cool air, read from his report. Sir, Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world. The surface is 70% covered in deadly acid that their species somehow needs to survive. The land masses are filled with creatures that make our greatest warriors look weak. Massive predators with crushing jaws. Venomous creatures smaller than your claw that can kill in seconds. And the humans, they're not the apex predator of their world. They became the apex predator by being smarter, faster, and more vicious than everything trying to eat them. The command bridge fell silent. Sir, whispered another officer, maybe we should negotiate. Vorthak roared in fury, but it was fear disguised as anger. We are Krulon. We do not negotiate with prey. But as the human fleet appeared on their sensors, 200 ships moving in perfect formation toward Thessia Prime, every Krulon in the command center knew the same terrible truth. They weren't the hunters anymore. They were the prey, and the wolves of Earth were coming for them. The human fleet arrived at Thessia Prime just as the sun rose over the burning Valani capital city. Admiral Soyoung Choi stood on the bridge of the flagship Retribution, watching the carnage below through the main screen. Status report, she ordered. 40 Krulon warships in orbit, reported Captain Sun-hee Park. Ground forces have occupied all major cities. Estimate 30 million Valanian concentration camps across the planet. Admiral Choi's jaw tightened. The Krulon had been busy. In just 4 days, they had turned a peaceful world into a nightmare. Admiral, called out Communications Officer Ji-won Kim, the Krulon are sending us a message. Put it through. General. Vorthak's ugly face filled the screen, his reptilian features twisted in what he probably thought was an intimidating snarl. Unknown mammals, he growled. You have entered Krulon space without permission. Leave now, or we will add your bones to our collection. Admiral Choi stepped forward. When she spoke, her voice was calm and cold as space itself. General Vorthak, I am Admiral Choi of the Human Defense Fleet. You have exactly 1 minute to release all Valani prisoners and retreat from this system. This is your only warning. Vorthak threw back his head and roared with laughter. 1 minute? You mammals are even more amusing than I thought. We are Krulon. We have conquered 47 worlds. Your tiny fleet will be destroyed, and your people will become our slaves. Admiral Choi smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Thank you, General. You just made this much easier. She cut the communication and turned to her crew. All ships, execute Operation Righteous Fury. Show them why Earth is called a death world. What happened next would change galactic warfare. Forever. The Krulon expected the humans to form battle lines and engage in traditional ship-to-ship combat. Instead, the human fleet scattered in all directions, moving in patterns that seemed random but were actually perfectly coordinated. Major Ji-hoon Kang led the first wave of assault pods directly through the Krulon formation. The pods were small, fast, and piloted by humans with reflexes no other species could match. "All squads, remember the mission?" Kang's voice crackled over the comm. "We're not here to conquer. We're here to rescue and punish." The assault pods punched through Krulon, defenses like bullets through paper. The reptilian aliens had never seen anything move so fast or strike so precisely. Staff Sergeant Yoon Ji-yoon's pod slammed into the surface near the largest concentration camp. She kicked open the pod door and stepped out, her combat armor gleaming. In the alien sunlight, the Krulon guards rushed toward her, roaring their challenge. They were twice her size, with claws that could tear through metal and teeth designed for ripping flesh. They died before they got within 10 meters of her. Yoonji moved like liquid death, her rifle firing with mechanical precision. Each shot found its target. Each target fell and did not get up. The other guards stopped their charge, suddenly realizing they were not facing prey. They were facing an apex predator. "Camp secured," Yoonji reported. "Beginning prisoner evacuation." Similar scenes played out across the planet. Human soldiers, enhanced with combat drugs that would kill most aliens, swept through Krulon positions like a force of nature. The Krulon had expected to fight frightened civilians or weak military forces. Instead, they found themselves facing creatures that had evolved on a world where everything was designed to kill them, and had not only survived but thrived. In orbit, the space battle was equally one-sided. Commander Seokjin Moon coordinated the human fleet with surgical precision. "Target their engines, not their life support," he ordered. "We want survivors to spread the word about what happens when you commit genocide." The Krulon ships, built for intimidation rather than actual combat, fell apart under the humans' focused assault. Their weapons were designed to terrorize helpless civilians, not fight trained warriors. Captain Donghyun Cho dove his fighter through a formation of Krulon bombers, his weapons cycling so fast they looked like continuous beams of light. Behind him, the bombers exploded in sequence, their debris raining down harmlessly into empty space. On the ground, Major Kang's forces had reached the main prison complex. What they found there made even hardened soldiers sick with rage. The Krulon had not just imprisoned the Villani, they had been experimenting on them, testing how much pain the gentle aliens could endure before they died, using them for target practice, feeding them to young Krulon as sport. "Sir," whispered one of Kang's Marines, staring at the torture chambers. "What kind of monsters are these?" Kang's voice was deadly quiet when he replied. "The kind that are about to learn why humans don't stay extinct." He keyed his radio to all frequencies. "All human forces, this is Major Kang. I'm uploading visual records of what we've found here. New rules of engagement. Any Krulon who doesn't surrender immediately is fair game." The change was immediate. The humans had been fighting with controlled military precision. Now they fought with cold, calculated fury. Sergeant Yoon Suk-han cornered a group of Krulon soldiers in the ruins of a Villani school. "Where are the children who were here?" he demanded. When the Krulon leader just snarled at him, Han's expression went completely blank. Wrong answer. The Krulon discovered that humans don't just fight to win, they fight to send a message. By the end of the day, the Battle of Thessia Prime was over. The Krulon had lost 80% of their invasion force. Their survivors were fleeing the system in whatever ships could still fly, but Admiral Choi wasn't done. "Admiral," said Captain Park, "the enemy is in full retreat. Mission accomplished." Admiral Choi shook her head. "No, Captain. The mission was to rescue the Villani. That's done. Now we have a new mission." She turned to address the entire fleet over the communication system. "Attention all ships, we came here to stop a genocide. We've done that. But these creatures didn't just attack the Villani. They've been doing this to dozens of species for decades. That ends now." She paused, looking out at the rescued Villani being loaded onto medical ships. "Set course for Krulon space. We're going hunting." The hunt began 3 days after the Battle of Thessia Prime. The human fleet moved through Krulon space like a surgical blade, striking at military targets with precision that terrified their enemies. Colonel Yoongi Park commanded the special operations forces aboard the stealth ship Silent Death. His mission was simple: find every world where the Krulon held slaves and free them. Intel shows 43 slave worlds in this sector alone, reported his intelligence officer, Lieutenant Nayoung Song. Millions of beings from dozens of species. Colonel Park studied the star maps on his screen. We'll hit them one at a time. Fast strikes, minimum casualties among the prisoners. Let the Krulon worry about their military losses. The first target was a mining world called Drakmor. The Krulon had enslaved a species of peaceful builders called the Altrani, forcing them to dig precious metals from dangerous underground caverns. Captain Hoseok Jung piloted the assault shuttle through the planet's atmosphere, invisible to Krulon sensors. LZ coming up in 30 seconds. Remember, we're not invaders, we're liberators. The strike team hit the main prison complex at dawn. The Krulon guards never knew what happened. One moment they were making their rounds, the next they were unconscious. On the ground, prisoners secured, reported Sergeant Major Hyunwoo Nam. No casualties among our people or theirs. But it was the psychological impact that mattered most. Word spread across Krulon space that humans could strike anywhere, anytime, and there was nothing the Reptilian Empire could do to stop them. General Vorthak was discovering just how impossible it was to fight an enemy that refused to follow the rules of traditional warfare. They're not fighting like civilized predators, he snarled at his staff. They strike our supply lines, free our slaves, and disappear before we can respond. This is not how war is supposed to work. His aide trembled as he delivered the latest reports. Sir, they've hit 17 slave worlds in the past month. Our entire labor force is collapsing. What the Krulon didn't understand was that humans had learned warfare on a planet where survival meant thinking like prey and predator at the same time. They could be patient hunters when needed, or explosive fighters when the situation called for it. Captain Min Ji-yoon commanded the destroyer, Earth's Fury, and she had turned disrupting Krulon logistics into an art form. Her ship would appear at a supply convoy, destroy the military escorts, and leave the cargo ships intact but empty. Why don't we just destroy everything? Asked her weapons officer. Because, Captain Yoon explained, fear is more effective than destruction. Every empty cargo ship that limps home tells the Krulon that we can take whatever we want whenever we want. That's worse than just blowing them up. The strategy was working. Krulon military morale was collapsing as word spread that the humans were unstoppable. On the occupied world of Vex Prime, Krulon soldiers were abandoning their posts rather than face human special forces. Lieutenant Commander Jae-hyun Kim's reconnaissance team found entire military bases empty, except for surrender messages written on the walls. This is what the message says, reported the team's translator. Please don't hurt us, we surrender, we just want to go home. But the humans weren't interested in mass surrender yet. They had a bigger goal. Admiral Choi had received intelligence about the Krulon's ultimate weapon, a planet killer called the World Breaker. It was the tool they used to force species into submission by threatening to destroy their homeworlds. Location? She asked her intelligence chief. Deep in Krulon space, sir. Heavily defended. They're probably planning to use it against Earth. Admiral, Choi smiled coldly. Let them try. The World Breaker launched 3 weeks later, its target the Sol system. General Vorthak personally oversaw its departure, confident that destroying the human homeworld would end their interference once and for all. The massive weapon never made it past the outer edge of Krulon space. Lieutenant Commander Kim's interceptor squadron had been waiting for it, hidden in the shadow of an asteroid field. The moment the World Breaker entered open space, 30 human fighters swarmed it like angry wasps. The planet killer's defenses were designed to stop fleets of battleships, not small, fast fighters piloted by humans with impossible reflexes. The interceptors slipped through the defensive fire like ghosts, placing shaped charges on critical systems. Charges set, reported Kim. All fighters clear the area. The World Breaker didn't just explode, it came apart like a puzzle, each piece spinning slowly in the void. Kim made sure to broadcast the destruction on all Krulon frequencies, along with a simple message. This is what happens when you threaten Earth. Consider this a warning. The psychological effect was devastating. The Krulon had built their entire empire on fear and intimidation. Now they were the ones living in terror, never knowing when the humans would strike next. Krulon colonies began surrendering without a fight. Their military commanders started defecting to avoid facing human forces. Some worlds declared independence from the Krulon Empire entirely, hoping the humans would protect them. On the Krulon homeworld itself, Emperor Gorvath was facing something his species had never experienced: complete military defeat. The humans have destroyed our fleet, freed our slaves, and made us look weak in front of the entire galaxy, reported General Vorthak, his proud voice now reduced to a whisper. What are your orders, my Emperor? Emperor Gorvath stared at the tactical display showing human ships throughout Krulon space. Red markers indicated human-controlled systems. There were dozens of them, and more appeared every day. For the first time in Krulon history, their Emperor spoke the words no member of his species ever thought they would hear. Send a message to the human admiral, he said quietly. Tell her we surrender. But Admiral Choi wasn't ready to accept surrender yet. She had seen what the Krulon had done to innocent species across the galaxy. She had walked through the torture chambers on Thessia Prime. Tell the Emperor, she replied to his messenger, that surrender is earned, not given. When he's ready to face justice for his crimes, we'll talk. The hunt across the stars continued. 5 months after the first human ship arrived at Thessia Prime, Emperor Gorvath of the Krulon Empire stood in the ruins of his throne room. The massive palace that had once been the symbol of Krulon power was now a broken shell, its walls scarred. By human weapons, Admiral Soyoung Choi entered the chamber flanked by 2 human marines. She wore her full dress uniform, every medal earned through years of defending Earth from hostile aliens. But today was different. Today she was accepting the surrender of an entire empire. Emperor Gorvath, she said formally, you requested this meeting. The once proud ruler of 47 worlds looked old and broken. His scales, which had once gleamed with the confidence of absolute power, were now dull and faded. Admiral Choi, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I come to surrender my empire to humanity. We cannot fight you anymore. Surrender? Admiral Choi raised an eyebrow. Your Majesty, you seem to misunderstand the situation. We're not here to conquer your empire. We're here to make sure you never harm innocent people again. She gestured to her aide, who activated a holographic display showing every world in Krulon space. Green markers showed liberated planets. Blue markers showed worlds that had voluntarily joined the growing alliance of free species. Red markers showed the few remaining Krulon military strongholds. Look at your empire, Emperor. Your people are abandoning you. Your military is deserting. Your colonies are declaring independence. We didn't destroy the Krulon Empire. You did, the moment you decided to become monsters. General Youngji Bei stepped forward, carrying a datapad. Your Majesty, these are the terms for reconstruction. The Krulon military will be disbanded. Your government will be restructured under human supervision. Most importantly, every species you enslaved will be granted full independence and protection. Emperor. Gorvath stared at the terms with growing horror. You're dismantling everything we built over centuries. No, said Admiral Choi firmly. We're fixing everything you broke over centuries. Meanwhile, on Thessia Prime, a very different ceremony was taking place. Ambassador Jiwon Kim stood before the rebuilt Vellani Senate, addressing representatives from dozens of species that had been freed from Krulon rule. The Vellani Protection Accords established something new in galactic history, she explained to the gathered delegates, an alliance based not on conquest or fear, but on mutual protection and respect. Elder Thessian, the leader of the Vellani, stepped forward. His people had rebuilt their world with human help, and the scars of war were slowly healing. 6 months ago, we sent a desperate message into space. hoping that someone, somewhere, might show mercy to innocents being slaughtered. We never imagined the response would be so swift or so complete. He turned to address the human delegation. The humans could have conquered us as easily as they defeated the Krulon. Instead, they chose to protect us. They could have taken our resources, but instead they helped us rebuild. They could have made us into subjects, but instead they made us into allies. Dr. Moonbyul Kim, humanity's chief xenobiologist, was working with Villani scientists to establish the new alliance's governing principles. Unlike every other galactic power in history, the humans insisted that member species retain complete autonomy. "But how will you maintain order?" asked a nervous delegate from the Zephyrian collective. "How will you prevent conflicts between species?" "Simple," replied Dr. Kim. "We don't rule anyone, we just make sure that nobody else does either." The concept was revolutionary. For the first time in galactic history, a powerful species was using their strength to protect the weak rather than exploit them. Back on the Krulon homeworld, the reconstruction was proceeding under human supervision. Colonel Yoongi Park was overseeing the conversion of weapons factories into schools and hospitals. "It's working," reported his aide, Captain Sunhee Park. "Krulon birth rates are stabilizing now that they're not constantly at war. Their young are adapting to the new educational system." The humans had made a startling discovery. The Krulon weren't naturally evil. They had become predators because their society rewarded violence and conquest. When those rewards were removed and replaced with incentives for cooperation and building, the reptilian species began to change. "Sir," called out Lieutenant Nayung Song from the communications center, "we're receiving a priority message from Admiral Choi." Colonel Park read the message and smiled. "Prep the fleet, we have another rescue mission." The message was simple but familiar, a distress call from a peaceful species being attacked by aggressive invaders. This time it came from the Andorian sector, where a race of gentle aquatic beings was being hunted by mechanical raiders. On the bridge of the Terra's Wrath, Captain Minho Park, promoted to Commodore after his role in first contact with the Villani, read the same message. "Sir," asked his navigation officer, "shall I set course for the Andorian sector?" Commodore Park looked around at his crew. These were the same people who had first heard the Villani distress call 6 months ago. They were explorers who had become warriors out of necessity, and now they were the galaxy's protectors. "Plot the course," he ordered. "Maximum speed." As the human fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, Ambassador Ji-Wan sent a message on all frequencies to the unknown attackers in the Andorian sector. "To the hostile forces attacking peaceful civilians, you have made a serious mistake. The Galactic Protection Alliance is aware of your actions. Surrender now and you will be treated fairly. Continue your attacks, and you will face the consequences." The message was signed simply, "The Wolves of Earth." Across the galaxy, species that had heard stories of the human intervention in Krulon space began to understand that a new age had begun. The strong could no longer prey on the weak without consequence. On Thessia Prime, the memorial to the fallen was finally complete. The monument was simple, a wall of black stone with names inscribed in dozens of languages. At the bottom, carved in letters that seemed to glow with inner fire, was a single inscription in Universal Standard, Korean, and English. When the Gentle called for help, the Hunters of Earth answered, "Let the stars remember, humanity's mercy is earned through justice, and their justice is absolute." As the human fleet jumped to hyperspace, beginning another rescue mission, the memorial stood as a promise to every species in the galaxy. The age of predators was over. The age of protectors had begun.